Good morning. I hope everybody can hear me. Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad to be with you this morning. Before I begin, I would like to give my thanks on behalf of Mennonite Mission Network for their generosity, the generosity of Willow Avenue Mennonite Church. I can speak for myself as well as for MMN that we are so grateful for how your community is stepping into new relationships and opportunities alongside us. And I am so excited to continue in this good journey together with you all. We come to this last part of Mark's telling of the story of Jesus, his life and ministry, as well as his death and resurrection. And depending on which ending you finish with, this may or may not be a satisfying conclusion. You see, up until this point, Jesus and his disciples have been through so much. Ooh, getting a little feedback. Are we good? Cool. So up until this point, Jesus and his disciples have been through a lot. The disciples have given up their jobs and lives, some being called along the journey, such as Mary Magdalene, to follow this rabbi, Jesus. And they follow him into wild places, witnessing his miracles and healings and teachings, all to proclaim a new kingdom, which is already broken through. Jesus healed the infirm, the demon-possessed, and the blind. Jesus taught in parables and spoke truth to people in power, especially the religious leaders. Frequently, Jesus prepares his disciples for what is to come. Jesus will die, but that won't be the end. Jesus is both welcomed by crowds and sought out for his healings and teachings, while others tend to come and accuse Jesus until what he prophesied come to pass. Jesus was taken, the disciples scattered, and many watched on as this miracle bringer and Son of God was given a gruesome death on a cross. That was it. It was over. Until it wasn't. And here's where we find ourselves at the beginning of Mark 16, where three women, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Salome, come to pay respects to the body of Jesus. Little did they know what would unfold that day. Now, as we read, Mark's telling of Jesus' resurrection varies depending on which manuscript you end at. If, like in our reading this morning, we end at verse 8, we see the women running away in fear of the angel, not even encountering the risen Jesus at this point. On top of that, they remain silent about the angel that they encountered, not following the angel's mandate to tell the disciples what they saw out of fear regarding the entire situation. In another ending taken from the Common English Bible, we see the first verse 9, which reads, "They," meaning the three women, "promptly reported all of the young man's instructions to those who were with Peter. Afterward, through the work of his disciples, Jesus sent out from the east to the west the sacred and undying message of eternal salvation. Amen." In this verse 9, there are many details left out about the ending. How did the women share what they had seen and heard from the angel? What the disciples' reactions were beyond acceptance? How long did that take? between them running in fear and them telling the disciples what happened? What exactly did they say? Again, this is all without the appearance of the risen Jesus, like we see in other synoptic gospels. It is in this third ending that we see a more fleshed out picture. And it starts with a second verse 9, and it goes until verse 20. Here, Mary Magdalene is the first person to encounter the risen Jesus. Or maybe, better put, Jesus encounters Mary Magdalene first. I am grateful for the beautiful artwork and rich reflection created by Hannah Garrity as we get to this part of the story. In Garrity's piece, we see a woman's face upturned with a look carrying so many emotions. Awe, wonder, some fear maybe. Her face is alight with some unseen source, her mouth slightly gaping. Something profound has happened. And according to Garrity's reflection based on today's passage, this is very much the case. Jesus, once dead, body beaten and bloodied, now stands before her. Jesus appears to a woman who, unlike the male disciples, remained with Jesus until his last breath, albeit at a distance. And this is seen in Mark 15, verse 40. She who was once healed from demonic possession and who chose to follow along with the disciples is the first to spread the gospel that Jesus and the kingdom which he taught about and showed signs of are present. She is open to the wonders she has witnessed firsthand, as well as what she will continue to encounter after Jesus ascends. We see in Mary this movement from fear into response, even if fear is still present, as she tells the other disciples what she has witnessed. And yet they don't believe her. See, in this third ending, it goes on to say that they not only didn't believe her, but some translations say that they would not believe her. Now, this could be for a number of reasons. In the text, it talks about their grief and fear, but I wonder if it was more. In any case, this ending continues to include Jesus appearing to two other people, and only after seeing Jesus for themselves will the disciples actually. Let me back up, sorry. This ending continues to include Jesus appearing two other times, once to two people, and again, finally, to the disciples, who will then believe. Jesus leaves his disciples with one last mandate in verses 15 through 18. Go into the world and proclaim the good news to every creature. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever doesn't believe will be condemned. These signs will be associated with those who believe. They will throw out demons in my name. They will speak in new languages. They will pick up snakes with their hands, and if they drink anything poisonous, it will not hurt them. They will place their hands on the sick, and they will get well. Now, as I've been looking at this passage and reflecting on Garrity's work, I'm really struck by the humanity throughout this story. There is a depth of grief that causes different people to do different things. The women are drawn to the tomb, ready to prepare their rabbi's body in death. The disciples are mourning and dispersing. And even those who maybe are going unnamed in this chapter, like Joseph of Arimathea, responds in respect and generosity by providing a burial place. And these are only a few mentions of the humanity present in the story. There's also fear. To see an empty tomb and an angelic being in a place where you know the body of your teacher was only 3 days prior would be absolutely jarring, to say the very least. For the body to be gone, stone to be rolled away, and an angel to be present, only to hear that Jesus is alive again. I'm truly not surprised that one of the story's endings was that the women ran away in fear. I think that's where I would be. One other thing that struck me in this story was disbelief. Even though Jesus had told his disciples about his coming death and resurrection again and again, it would be difficult to have hope that this could be true in light of the reality of Jesus's death. Though the text does not say that the women, upon encountering the angel, experienced disbelief, I do wonder if in their fear, they also experienced doubt or denial about what they saw. When I've heard this story preached in the past, especially when I was growing up, I often heard the whole story to be boiled down to Jesus's final statement. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever doesn't believe will be condemned. There was often no mention of the women who were there first to encounter the empty tomb, or how Mary was the first to see the risen Jesus, or any of the human reactions to the resurrection. Only that there must be belief and baptism to enter this kingdom. Any doubt or disbelief will lead to condemnation. When I read this now, however, I see a more complex picture than that. Jesus, though clearly distinguishing between belief and disbelief in this story, still chooses to call people in light or despite their humanity. When the women ran in fear of the angel, Jesus chose to directly appear to Mary Magdalene himself. When the disciples refused to believe Mary's testimony, Jesus appeared to others. And again, when that didn't pierce through the disciples' disbelief, he came to them himself, as he did to Mary and the two unnamed others. I see in this story Jesus pursuing the disciples. Before ascending, Jesus does not leave the people to believe blindly, but rather gives signs so that more will believe in the form of healing, exorcisms, and other forms of miracles as he exemplified in life. As each part of the story progresses, I see more instances where Jesus meets the people where they are at, providing them with what they need in order to follow through with the mandate to spread the news of the already and not yet kingdom of heaven. Rather than outright dismiss the disciples, Jesus pursues them, calling them into participation in this inbreaking kingdom. Not only are they being called into this new way, but they are also being equipped to become sign bearers. By encountering Jesus amidst all of their humanliness, the disciples are tasked with going forward and continuing Jesus' liberative, healing, and reality-bending work. When I first came to this passage this morning, I wondered how I was going to really get the belief part of the message correctly. I spent weeks trying to figure out the perfect wording, ways to show just how impressive my education had prepared me for such a time as this, and the like. What I came to realize, though, was that there would be no perfect way to talk about this or any passage. There are too many things that I'm bringing into this space, my own humanness, doubts and frustrations, some stubbornness and some anger that are all tied with my own fear and the griefs that I bring into this space today, as well as vulnerability. Now, I will say that all of these feelings aren't just about this sermon and that these feelings don't dictate it all, but that is how I'm coming into this space. What I wasn't expecting, however, is for this message today to both call me out on those, as well as invite me in, complex and messiness included. Jesus continues to pursue, draw in, and provide a way for the inbreaking kingdom. And I find myself tied into that story. Like Mary Magdalene, who was open to change and newness while being very much human. So too, I believe all that is required is openness in light of revelation and transformation. And so I invite you, bring your doubt, stubbornness, fear, grief. Bring all of your humanity. Because even if Mark 16 ended in verse 8, the gospel still somehow made its way from the empty tomb. And so, Jesus continues to invite us, as messy and humanly difficult and complex and beautiful as we are. So come, with your full self and with an open heart to something new. You're welcome here.